fought it for like 40 minutes.
It was a long time.
It was a while. Wes and I are reminiscing about the technical problems that we had last week.
It's odd. I've never had those problems before.
Yeah. It's like I said, I don't come down here and fuck with this stuff because it's very finicky and
maybe the chakras were off.
the chakras, yeah, the vibes were off.
The vibes were off. It's because I'm a Virgo.
What a Scorpio thing to do. I never bought into that crap. Ever. And it's like, I try not to make fun of people that do, but it's like the people that use it as a replacement for like
a personality
or like accountability for their actions.
Yeah.
That's annoying. It's like if you it's like that one meme where it's like girls will like drive over the curb and hit 5 pedestrians and be like, oops, I'm just an asparagus.
Yeah, I wonder why it is too that like it seems to be more prevalent with women than it is men.
I don't know.
I wonder what's up with that.
It is definitely more it's definitely more prevalent with women. But I think a lot of those like spiritual, astral, ethereal, those kinds of things, women tend to gravitate towards those more than men do anyway.
No.
I don't know what it is about it. I actually know what I think it is. I think it's the aesthetic.
You think so?
I think it's the aesthetic. Like the purples and the blues and like the sparklies and everything like that. I honestly think that's what it is. So if it was like, if crystals and like holistic healing was like, I don't know, like with like ugly dirt rocks and not like like actual
just
like
some gravel.
Yeah, like pretty crystals. Then it would be dudes who'd be all into it probably. Like if you take this Georgia red clay and you stuff it up your ass, it'll cure your colon cancer. I think they actually didn't they change the signs a while back? Wasn't that a thing? Do you remember that?
I don't know.
I think it was like it was around like 2017 or 2016, I think, where they changed they didn't change the signs, they changed what days mean what sign you have.
Isn't this supposed to be like loosely based on like planetary positioning?
I think so. I hear a lot about when they talk about like Mercury is in retrograde or whatever. It's got something to do with the planets. I don't know.
You could just been talking about anything. And I've just been like, okay.
One of my favorite things I see where people mock it is they'll say Megatron is in Powerade. And they get so mad when you insult it.
Yeah.
It hits them hard. Because I do it all the time on Facebook. Just relentlessly making fun of it. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I'm a Christian. I have my beliefs too.
Yeah.
But it's like, come on. Oh, goodness. As you may have just heard, the dogs are hanging out in the room next to us, and hopefully they'll be good guests. But we didn't have them in here with us because they just get tangled up on the cords. And
yeah, it gets real hot in here, too.
It does get hot in here, even with just me and Wes. Like, by about, like, the last, 10 minutes of the podcast, I'm sitting in here, I'm sweating.
Yeah, it's like a sauna.
It gets hot. Well, I mean, it's because we've got all this, soundproofing and stuff. And then the computer's sitting over here running.
It was nice this morning, though. I woke up and it was 65 degrees outside.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it cooling down. Yeah. Because we had a couple weeks, at least here in Georgia, at the end of August, where it was fucking believably hot.
That's what Allison told me the other day. She's like, it's so much hotter this year than it was last year. I was like, I grew up in a house with no AC.
Yeah.
I was like, it's always been this fucking hot.
I know what hot is.
Yeah. I was like, it has always been this fucking hot. I was like, I played football during the summer with pads on.
I think one of the hottest days. Excuse me. I think one of the hottest days I ever experienced was here in Georgia. And it was it must have been over the summer or spring break, but Mom took us all to Six Flags when we were little kids. And
that doesn't help because it's just fucking asphalt everywhere.
Yeah. And I remember it was 119 degrees was the heat index or whatever. But I was young, like I was a little kid, but I remember exactly how hot it felt.
Yeah.
And like I've always had a low tolerance for heat anyway.
No.
And I remember we got back in the car to leave, and the car had just been sitting out there baking in the sun.
No. And
it just hurt to be in the car. No. You felt like your skin was blistering. You're like, Mom, turn the AC on. And she's like, shut the fuck up.
I remember when Dad used to have, when we were little kids, he had that old Ford Ranger, that just like bench seat Ford Ranger. It was like that beige.
Was it a Ranger?
Yeah.
I thought he had an S10. I thought that was an S10.
No, it was a Ranger.
No. The one that had a tree growing out of the back of it? Yeah.
And I remember, like, we would get in, and, like, if you were wearing shorts during the summer, like, it'd burn the fuck out of the back of your legs.
Yes, it would.
Because it was just, like, that hard, like, plastic.
Yeah.
And it, like
quote-unquote leather.
Yeah, and it would just burn the shit out of you.
It would burn the shit out of you. And we used to sit in that thing 4 deep to go to fucking football practice. Like,
I remember
as a kid. I don't know how that works.
I remember as a kid, like, once I got old enough, he was like, get in the back.
Yeah. It'd just be the 3 of us all in football pads crammed into this little truck.
Like, look, one of you, and we used to be like, I want to sit in the back. I want to sit in the bed.
We're fucking little rednecks. It's so funny, too, because, like, you know, I feel like I don't see people riding in the backs of trucks anymore.
No, you used to see that shit all the time.
All the time when we were little. We did it all the time.
Yeah. It was fun.
It was fun. And I did see it recently. I think Mary was with me. But you know, just down the road from here where that roundabout is? Mm-hmm. That roundabout, and there's an interesting thing about that roundabout, is depending on which exit you take, you're going to go to a very specific part of town. And if you leave from here and you head to that roundabout and you take a right, you're going into like the hauler.
Yeah.
So these people were coming from the hauler when I saw them, so it makes sense. But they had like this old like I don't know, 1990s Chevy Silverado with like the back half of the cab cut off, and like they had a bench seat from a different truck, like bolted in the bed.
Just like welded it into the bed.
But not like in the cab where it would be
in the bed.
It was back like 10 feet in the bed. And there's just like these little kids sitting there with their shirts off and like shaved heads, and they're dirty. And I'm just like, I fucking remember living like that. That used to be my life. I remember that. Just being shirtless and dirty all the
time. Well, I mean, you got to think where we came from. So, like, I remember Dad telling me stories of, so I guess one of our grandfather's cousins or somebody, I can't remember. Like he, the dude was a bootlegger. Yeah. So like he would run moonshine and everything. And like, so our grandfather would go over there to like visit this guy. Yeah. And of course he'd bring Dad with him. And it's just like all these little fucking redneck kids. Yeah. And so Dad would say he'd just get out of the truck and just start swinging. He's
like fighting immediately.
Like immediately start fighting.
It was so funny. Yeah, it was a different time. I'm pretty sure Dad for a while lived in a house with no floor. Like they had a dirt floor.
Just a dirt floor. Yeah. I think I remember him telling me that. I remember he was saying when he was a kid that he lived in a house that they didn't have a bathroom. They had to go to the outhouse.
Yeah. God, could you imagine? Could you imagine what hell that must be in the middle of fucking August? And it's just sitting out there stewing. Ugh. Yeah, and you got to go in there.
I'd rather just shit in my pants.
Yeah, I'd rather shit in my pants than go take a bath in the river.
I mean, I guess if that's the only thing you've ever known. Yeah. Then I guess it is what it is, but I couldn't imagine like going from like indoor plumbing.
No.
To like
no, taking a step backwards is not going to happen.
Let me tell you something I'm not going to do. Which is like, it's pretty remarkable because I mean, like even in the most poverty-stricken areas now, like there is no such thing as an outhouse.
No.
Like, you don't see outhouses
No,
anymore.
indoor plumbing is very, very, very basic.
Yeah.
There is a God, could you imagine though, like going to like during the middle of like a particularly bad storm, like lightning and wind, like flinging shit everywhere. And you're like, I gotta shit.
It's like getting hit in the face with pine needles trying to go.
You finally make it in there. The door's like banging. This fucking thing's about to lift off. You're just trying to shit real fast.
I mean, it's not. It couldn't be possibly much worse than what they used to do in England, where they would just shit in a pot and throw it out of the window.
Yeah.
Oh, right then.
Yeah. What's all this then?
You get hit in the head with a whole bucket of shit.
Oh, just fucking soupy shit. Disease-riddled people. Every time I think about it, I always get this image of like a dude in like a full like black suit, like a bowler hat,
like a wool suit.
Yeah, like walking down the street with like a cane, and then like some chambermaid in like with her tits pushed way up, and then like the bonnet. She's like, "Look out below!" And she's just like throws like a Home Depot bucket of shit out the window. Just this brown wave. And he's like, "Oh shit." Dad had sent us a video a while back because you and I had discussed a few times about like when the worst time to be alive would be.
No.
And I think we both agreed on colonial America, but he sent us one that was like actually like the 1920s. He was like being born in like it was like the 1910s or something.
It would, if you would have been born in like it was like either 1900 or like the late 1890s. And the reasoning behind it was, and I thought I had never considered it, was that, if you were born in, so World War I was like it was like 1910.
Yeah.
So
it went into 1930, didn't it?
So if you were born, say, in like 1891, then by the time that World War I would have kicked off, you would have been 19 years old.
Military age.
So you've been military age, prime military age. So you would have been drafted to go fight in World War I. Had you survived that, then you would have come back. And, of course, the 1920s were the roaring 20s. So it was this great expansion of, economic viability for the U.S.
That did not last long
that did not last.
All.
Gilded Age. So, and then you move from there straight into the 30s, which is the Great Depression. So that would have been...
And the Dust Bowl. Wasn't the Dust Bowl around then, too?
Right.
Yeah.
So that you would have been, late 30s by the time that happened?
Yeah. Still a relatively young man.
Yeah, still relatively young. And so most of the time, like back then, people would have you'd have come back from war, like immediately started a family, had kids.
Yeah.
Had that not already been the case.
Yeah.
So by the time that your kids would have been prime military age, then they would have been...
Here comes round two.
Yeah, they would have been sent off to World War II.
Yeah.
So there's a pretty good possibility that even if you survived World War I, then your children would have been sent off to World War II.
Which was markedly worse.
Yeah, and would have had a horrific death. You could have lost all of your children.
Yeah. And then by the time the 60s come around and you're like in your golden years, here comes the fucking Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War. You're like, oh, are we all going to die in nuclear fire? And also, like, if you were born in like the 1910s or whatever, or early 1900s, late 1890s, your dad probably fucking fought in the Civil War.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Or at least your grandfather did.
You knew somebody that fought in the Civil War.
You knew somebody that fought in the Civil War.
Right.
And probably died in the Civil War.
Right.
Yeah. Was probably missing some arm and had like this gangrenous fucking stump.
Yeah.
And they were crazy racist. Just a toothless, stumpy man just yelling about black people.
I don't like the way this country's hated.
And they give them everything for free. Yeah, it would have been rough. I mean, especially like, that entire life cycle, your entire life cycle, all you've known is like war on a global scale. And you're like, is this all that it is?
Well, look at us. So
yeah.
The U.S. has, I think there was a
It's
chart.
mostly been concentrated in one area, though.
Right.
And it's mostly been one belligerent causing most of it, namely us.
Yeah.
But
and it's mostly, been us causing all the problems.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there was a chart that I saw not too long ago where it went, like, your birth year and, like, how long the U.S. has been in, like, a conflict or a war.
Yeah.
And I think, like, the year that I was born, so 1989, I think the U.S. has been at war for, I think it's been, and this was years ago when I saw this, because it's more now.
Yeah.
But I think it was, like, 87% of my life.
Good God almighty.
The U.S. has been in some type of war. Sending all the poor people.
Yeah. Into the meat grinder.
Yeah. Throw more meat in the grinder.
I saw this thing the other day that military recruiting numbers are down.
Oh, bad. They're bad.
Like way, way down.
They're bad. The U.S. Navy missed their fiscal year mark by 7,000 recruits.
Wowee. I just can't help but feel that it's the government's fault a little bit for disillusioning everybody.
You think?
Yeah. And not taking care of the veterans.
Yeah.
So when the people who are coming up and they're supposed to replace everybody are like, why in the fuck would I ever do this? And also, I now know what it is you're fighting for.
Right.
And why we're fighting in the first place.
And Lockheed. Well, and I think a lot of people now, too, understand that, like, it's pretty easy to figure out what the next thing we're going to be doing is.
Yeah.
It's sitting over there in Eastern Europe. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody wants to be involved with that.
Mm. I don't. No, I don't want my kids to now.
No.
And, like, they were saying, like, everybody that they do get is, like, too fat and, like, mentally challenged.
No.
And I don't mean, like, special ed mentally challenged. I mean, like,
they're
they
just
have
fucking stupid.
They have, like, some kind of self-diagnosed acronym that they, all that crap. Yeah.
Yeah. Always looking for a diagnosis.
Yeah. And then they just, like, I obviously have no fucking dog in this fight or skin in the game or whatever, but it's like I've seen, like, all the inclusivity and DEI changes and stuff that is coming into the military. And in my opinion, I'm like, the last thing that needs to be run like the fucking Disney Corporation is our military.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, I specifically remember when I came into the military. And I remember, like, one of the first things, like, our drill instructor told us, he was like, I don't give a fuck.
He was like, you're all special.
Yeah, he's like, I don't give a fuck what color you are. Yeah. He's like, you mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can get down with this.
Yeah.
He was like, you'll die and fight just like everyone else.
Yep.
And I was like, all right. Yeah. He's like, this is what you signed up for.
Mm-hmm. It's like that scene with, was it Arlie Ermy in Full Metal Jacket, where he's like, you are no longer brown or green or white or brown or black. You are now green. I butchered that quote, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that wasn't Full Metal Jacket. That was Jarhead.
Yeah, that was Jarhead.
It was Jarhead,
yeah.
Which is a really good movie and probably also partly responsible for the disillusionment I was speaking about.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That movie is. I didn't really appreciate it at the time when I first saw it, but and there's been a bunch of, like, sequels since that are all kind of trash, but like the first Jarhead with Jake Gyllenhaal is a fantastic movie.
Well, and I think too with that movie, I don't think that it gets the recognition that it deserves.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people saw that movie when this was coming off the heels of 9/11. So I mean, there was still a lot
pretty. Like recently, yeah.
I mean, so this was still like in an era where like people were actively seeking out military service.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people were kind of looking past some of the pitfalls of what it means to serve in the military. Because going back and watching
2005 was when it released.
Yeah, 2005. So that
4
was
years
4 years afterwards. Yeah. So I mean, that's about it takes a while in order for them to like write the script and like get everything going. So chances are they pitched that pretty close after 9/11.
Yeah.
Like just the idea of the movie.
Yeah.
So, going back and watching that movie, later in life, I mean, they outline some of the hardships that kind of befall a service member.
A lot of like the mental aspects of it and everything.
I think that,
especially like being in a relationship is a big part of it.
I think that movie pretty closely captures and I think is a good representation of the generation that fought in that conflict.
Was it Desert Shield?
That was Desert Storm.
Storm.
Yeah, so that was directly going into Afghanistan. And then we had weapons of mass destruction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We were assured we're over there.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? What is a WMD? It's like just that, just weapons of mass destruction.
Thanks, Colin Powell.
You know what that means? Why they said that was because if they found anything, that's just a broad term, right? They could have applied it to anything that they happen to have found.
Right. I mean, they could have said that depleted uranium rounds were weapons of mass destruction.
Exactly. That's why they didn't specify what exactly it was that they were claiming was over there. But I think one of the Jarhead, I think. It kind of pulls the rug out from under you a little bit as the viewer, because I think what you're expecting when you go into that movie is like, oh, this is our generation's Saving Private Ryan. Like, this is our generation's like propagandist, like military action flick or whatever. And it's just not that at all.
No,
the entire movie is Jake Gyllenhaal's character Swafford. He's playing with the Marines, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he ends up being like a Marine sniper.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole entire movie is just like him getting his shit kicked in like basic training.
Yep.
And like nothing's going right for him. His like girlfriend breaks up with him, and like they're over there running all these drills and doing all these exercises in the middle of the fucking desert, and nothing's happening.
Yep.
He like never really sees any combat, and they end up getting a mission. Him and his spotter get a mission to like hoof it across like the fucking desert over to like this airfield where they're going to take out this general. And they just go through so much shit just getting there.
Nope.
And they finally get in their little crow's nest, and they're lining up to take the shot. And at the last fucking second, the chair force arrives.
Nope.
And they literally
burst into the room.
Yeah, they play into that literally because the guy pulls out a folding chair and he sits in it. And they just carpet bomb the airport where the Afghan general was, whatever, Taliban, whatever. And it's just like, it very clearly paints this picture of what was it all for?
Right.
Was like I gave up everything to do this one thing, and then when I got the chance to do this one thing, I gave that up too.
Right.
Yeah. And then like of course the end of the movie, he's back home, and like one of the guys he deployed with committed suicide, and like he can't find a job, and like it ruined him.
Right.
Yeah. So it was very, very disillusioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that at the time there was still a lot of because I'm trying to think back, like what was it like? And so they released that movie in 2005. So I was in 6th grade when the towers fell. So and there was like a lot of like I kind of remember like when it happened, there was like this feeling of like patriotism. Like everybody was like together, which is probably like the last fucking time that happened.
Yep.
So I would like remember when it happened, and then like immediately afterwards, like I remember when they're like we're declaring war, and everybody was like, "Fuck yeah, fucking get him,
kill him, fuck him to death." Hey, but we were right to feel that way. We had been attacked.
Well, that was like the first time that this had happened on U.S. soil. And then, of course, like they used that in order to progress.
It just wasn't directed at the right people.
To progress powers of the state. So, and then this kicks off a whole thing. I'm not going to go into it.
We're not going to go into it.
Yeah, we're not going to go into it. But
even though it is September.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you could see, like, even during 2005, there was still a large portion of the community that was still willing to serve in the military with the idea of that I'm going to go kill terrorists. Mm-hmm. Like that's the point of
I'm going to kill the bad guys.
Right, I'm going to go kill the bad guys.
It was never black and white.
No.
And like the last time it was even close to being black and white was in World War II.
Right. And well, I mean, even when you look at like what happened surrounding that, it wasn't even Afghanistan was willing to give up the Taliban. Like they were going to give up, not Saddam Hussein. Damn it!
I almost said Benjamin Franklin. Wasn't it Bin Laden?
Bin Laden,
yeah.
So there were
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin. So Afghanistan was actually going to give up Benjamin Franklin. Like the Taliban was like, "Here you go."
Did you say Benjamin Franklin on accident just then?
I might have. Like Bin Laden. like we've got him. So they were going to give up bin Laden. They were going to give him over to the United States. And we're like, no.
No, we just want to bomb everyone.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that in today's age, like, there's a lot more, like, understanding of what is actually going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's in part because of social media.
A little bit,
and
yeah.
I think a lot of what that has to do with, and I see it a lot, like, in the veteran community, is that the veterans are now kind of spreading the word.
Yeah.
Of, like, what's actually happening over here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are disillusioned with what is actually happening over there.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, you see it firsthand.
Right.
I mean, if you when you're over here, I mean, all you're being told is, you know, what the media is telling us.
Right.
But during that time, social media wasn't a thing, so literally all we had to go off of was legacy media.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, the only social media that you had was MySpace, and this was at the infancy.
Yeah.
Of social media. So you had, like, before MySpace, there was, like, what was the other one?
Zanga.
So there was, like, Zanga, which I think was just like a blog posting type deal. And then, like, you moved into MySpace, but that's not what MySpace. It wasn't. You weren't receiving news at the time from your social media. It was just like a way to connect with people.
Yeah.
Like, that's essentially what it was. It wasn't this propaganda machine that it is now. The state hadn't put its finger in it.
It you know, there were people back then who were trying to shed light on what was actually going on, but because there was so few independent outlets and third-party outlets, it was very easy for legacy media to kind of mark these people as like fucking traitors almost.
Right.
Like,
well, and a lot of people don't remember, but I remember Vox used to be in Vice as well.
Yeah.
Like, Vice used to be like a big time, like, they would do like documentaries on like exposing like corruption and all this stuff. That's obviously not the case anymore.
No.
But, and I think, I'm not going to go into it because that goes into like the State Department having their fingers all in.
Yeah.
And
somebody got bought
these
out.
media companies and everything.
Yeah. I mean, the one name that comes to mind straight away is Michael Moore.
Yeah.
Now, Michael Moore is a dishonest fucking pig piece of shit.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. That's what he is. But he did try to shed to his credit, he did try to shed the light on what was going on.
Right.
And I think that because he got attacked so hard from everybody, the whole nation, it drove him further into that kind of corner.
Right.
So that anything past that point that he tried to put out, everybody just immediately wrote it off. It's like, oh, this is like the most extreme far left liberal nonsense. Right. Don't even bother listening to it, regardless of how truthful it is. It was bad timing on his part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, there was still like this, like, it was still like very patriotic during the time. So like anything, and people were not able to separate the criticism of the war from the service member.
Yeah, from support of
support of the service member. And I think that was in large part the framing of the argument that people were making at the time.
Yeah.
I think that had the framing of the argument been like, it is intellectually dishonest to be for this war and the service member at the same time.
Yeah.
Because then people would have been like, I don't understand what you're like, explain yourself. What do you mean by that? And then you could have then expanded upon that and been like, we're over here fighting for private interests of these corporations.
Yeah.
As like, and you're willing and actively participating in sending poor people's children to go fight and die in these wars.
To spill their blood so that the rich can get richer.
Exactly. So like if it would have been
There's
framed...
nothing to do with protecting our country.
If it had been framed like that, instead of taking pot shots at like the heads of state, I think that more people would have been willing to listen to that.
Right.
And we could have gotten ahead of it as opposed to... I just think the framing was wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
And also at the same time, it's like now, like looking back at it, that might have even been the framing at the time. It might have just been the media, the legacy media companies at the time.
They had stoked the fires so much.
So I mean that might have been the framing at the time, but it could be that the legacy media at the time was reframing it to make it seem like that the criticism is towards the service member.
Yeah, and it never was.
No.
I mean, there probably were people out there who were directing their ire at the service member because, as far as they knew, those people were willingly going over there with the understanding that they were killing innocent people for private interest.
Right.
Which I don't think was the case.
No.
There might have been a handful of them who were psychopaths who managed to
squeak
in there.
There's going to be some psychopaths.
Yeah. I mean, look at the job, right? Yeah. It's going to attract a certain type of person. The same thing happens with police.
No.
I mean, it's power. It's power that you can have. It's going to attract a certain type of people.
Right.
I mean, of course, it's going to attract people who are going to want to do it because they feel like they need to protect.
Right.
And they need to serve people and be public servant. But there's going to be some people who are like, they're going to give me a gun.
Yeah. There's some people that are just fucking deviants.
Yeah. It's like, did you see that video recently where a police officer, I don't know the entire story, I just know what I've seen so far. He ran over some girl in a crosswalk, or he hit her with his car and killed her. And I don't know if it was there in the middle of a pursuit or what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
But then they have him on video, his body cam footage. He was in the car after the fact, and he was talking to somebody on the phone about it, and he was laughing about hitting her. And he was like, oh, just send the family $11,000. That'll shut him up. And like, ha, like whatever. Like, he just said some shit like that.
Yeah.
Just very disconnected, very just very heartless, very heartless way to speak about this person.
Yeah.
And it was like that, for every one of that guy though, there's probably 20 or 30 people who are doing it for the right reasons.
Right. Well, and I think too that, like you said, there's gonna be people that are quote unquote like what I guess like people in that community. They're like what they're called like sheepdogs. Like they protect other people.
Cringy shit.
That cringy shit. But
From was an American Sniper. Yeah.
So but if we want to go down that route and like use those terms, it's like for every 10 or 11 of those people, you're going to have a wolf.
Yeah.
That's going to act like.
For sure. Absolutely. A lot of them are like, a lot of them
but just dealing with the general populace is like that's about what the ratio is anyway.
I think you look at we'll bring up Uvalde for a second. Some of them are fucking sheep.
Yeah, some of them are just fucking cowards.
The craziest screenshot that came out of all that was
the guy looking at his phone with the Punisher.
With the fucking Punisher logo. And then there's fucking there's like a fucking caption at the bottom from the released video that said the screams of children have been deleted or excluded or whatever.
Yeah.
So the kids are getting murdered, actively getting murdered. The children are being murdered. And this guy is there the whole time it's going on, and he's looking at his fucking phone with the Punisher logo on it. Like, all right, Punisher, Frank Castle, why don't you get in there and do something about it? And then a lot of the pushback from that I saw was, had it been you in the situation, you probably would have froze too. Well, that's not really the point. I didn't choose that job.
Right.
He did.
Right.
He knowingly chose that job.
Right. Knowing that this could be a possibility. This could be
something he had to deal with.
There's a video of two female police officers. Like they're in their cop car. They're pointing at a corner store or whatever.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's maybe Chicago or something. There's a guy walking down the road.
Yeah.
And a car pulls up, and the guy comes out of the side, on the window, with a Uzi, and just lights this dude up. And the two females in the cop car pull out and run away.
Oh my God! It was so scary.
And I think, this is hearsay, so I don't know if this is actually the case, but I heard that they didn't fire them.
Oh my God!
If I was the chief of police, I'd be like, give me your fucking badge and give me your gun immediately and get the fuck out of my station.
Yeah. Because the only thing that's probably more dangerous than an insane cop is a cowardly cop.
Right.
I've seen a bunch of videos where, I'm not going to turn this into a diversity hire or women shouldn't be police kind of thing, but a lot of the videos I've seen of people getting accidentally shot by the police have been women police officers.
Yeah.
And there's a whole discussion that we could have there about the biology between men and women and who reacts better to what kind of a situation. But I'm just saying from what I've seen, You
Right.
know, it seems to me that women are less capable of that particular job.
No. Well, I specifically remember like being in the military, and like any time that I would have to go like on an ECP watch, like a gate watch or something like that, it was like any time that I went out with like a girl out to the gate to do gate watch, like I'm on high alert because I know that if anything fucking happens, I'm on my own. Like I can't expect much help from this person.
Yeah.
Like especially if it's like a physical attack with multiple people.
Also, they would target her first.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because they would see her as a softer target.
Right. I have to present a harder target than usual.
Yeah.
Given the fact that this like if somebody like if there's like 5 guys that came up and like they got on top of us, like they didn't present a threat prior to getting on top of us, like it's going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I'm glad that there are people out there who are doing the job, but I'm glad that it's not me.
Right.
Because, you know, there's a lot of those situations where, like, it's like kind of like you said, like it doesn't always, those altercations or whatever, they don't always present themselves as like this thing you can see coming from a mile away.
No.
Like usually it's like an ambush or.
Right. It's not fucking Mad Max coming up to like where you are.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like a video game where like they're like, you know, they have like a health bar above their head.
You don't hear like boss music as like as like somebody is like coming towards you. Most of the time, like if I'm going to attack somebody with the intent of doing harm to this person, it's like I want to be as effective as possible.
Right.
So I'm not going to present myself as a threat.
I'm gonna do a stealthy approach.
Right.
It's like it's not like if you spotted some
you
guy
like squat down.
You're like hiding behind shit. You're like, what's this guy doing? I just can imagine like
you're like, what is that?
Yeah. What was that noise? There was like I said, there's somebody like you saw at the mall that you had beef with. You were like, I don't know, 200 feet away from. You wouldn't immediately just like start screaming and charging. Yeah. It gives them too much time to prepare. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them who stand out in that field as being protectors, and you see a bunch of videos where like they will save like the life of a baby, or actually manage to de-escalate a situation, which is a fucking rare thing. Right. And also probably a nigh impossible thing to do.
Right. De-escalation is it's very hard to do. However, that should always be the first resort. Yeah. Like when you're presented with a threat. Yeah. Like somebody that is not, they don't have a weapon immediate. Like if they're being belligerent. Yeah. Like you don't want to be like, you'd be like, all right, it's fucking go time. And you like take out your baton and just beat the shit out of them. Yeah. Like you want to make sure that whatever force it is that you're using is appropriate for the situation.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, like if you pull up on a situation and it's like a guy who's actively shooting people. Right. You can't be like, hey, buddy, come on. Like, what are we doing here?
Exactly.
You have to come up and you have to eliminate that threat. Right. But if it's a guy who's just kind of angry on the sidewalk and he's hollering at people, you can't roll up on him and jump out of your car and fucking cap him in the head. Right. Problem solved. Everybody go about your day.
This isn't fucking GTA. Yeah. Well, you know, and I think there's a lot to be said, and I think that, you know, the ACAB people do make a pretty good argument for the fact that police officers should not be dealing with people with mental issues because they're not trained nor prepared to deal with somebody that is schizophrenic or...
I think they should at least be present.
Yes.
As maybe security. Right. In case things get to that level.
Exactly.
But, you know, there are situations that, you know, maybe a social worker would be appropriate. Right. For that particular thing. But if it's a guy who's like actively attacking people, we need a police officer to deal with this. Yeah.
And you know, I also don't believe that the correct response to this is just fucking let them live on the sidewalk. No. Like that's not helping anybody and it's actively hurting the community. So
it hurts everybody involved.
Right. Yeah. Like especially like when they're leaving like dirty needles and they're taking dumps in the middle of the street.
Yeah, taking a shit right in the middle of the street. You ever seen the San Francisco poop map?
Yeah, I have.
It's so funny because like, you know, what's a real famous street over there? Is it Skid Row?
No, Skid Row is in L.A.
That's in L.A.?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. if you go, it's funny because every like Californian like politician or whoever will do their fucking damnedest to convince you that it's not that big of an issue.
Sorry.
But if you go on Google Maps, you can see it plain as day.
No.
That's the thing that always gets me is like it's the politicians who will try to tell you or try to convince you to ignore the evidence that your eyes and ears present you.
Right.
And it's like whenever whoever's running Biden's Twitter account gets on there and starts talking about how cheap everything is. Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about, man? What are you talking about?
Well, and I think too that a lot of what that is that, for the most part, people just kind of want to go on about their day. Like they don't want to have like conflict in their everyday.
Don't want to be impeded.
Yeah. Like, so most of the time people are willing to like give ground on a lot of stuff. Yeah. Just so that, it's like, I don't really want to have to like argue with somebody.
Like the path of least resistance.
Yeah. Like I don't really want to have to deal with this. Like I got other shit going on. Yeah. Like I'm like trying to make sure that I keep my job so I can keep a fucking roof over my head. You know what I mean? So
it's like if I break down, start calling you names, somebody's going to record it, put it on Twitter. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of politicians understand that, especially the ones on the left, because they kind of play to it. They're playing to this fact that a lot of people don't want to make waves. So a lot of people just kind of want to go along to get along. Yeah. And so a lot of what that is like, and this might not be the case, but just from the outside looking into like that part of the political spectrum, it just seems like they kind of keep like push the envelope just a little, just to see how much like they can get the populace to kind of like agree with them. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's sort of like,
how complacent can we get?
How complacent can we, and this just from the outside looking in, that's what it seems like. Yeah. It's like how much more can we kind of push this a little bit? Right. And it just seems like had the discussion around, say, I don't know, what's one of the more like crazier shit that they do? I mean, it's all fucking nuts, but I mean, think about like
gender ideology is a big one.
Yeah. So think about like,
especially in schools.
Think about like 2003, 2004. Yeah. Had the discussion about like gender. Okay. So like sex changes for children, which I know that they'd claim that that's not actually happening, but they're still putting them.
But they say it's a good thing when it does happen.
Yeah, they're putting them on puberty blockers, which is extremely dangerous to do. Yeah. So say that like California would have enacted the thing that they're enacting now, where it's like had the parent is not allowed to make the medical decision for the child that they cannot go through.
And it was like they can take your kid away if you misgender them.
Exactly. Yeah. Had that been presented in like 2003, that would have everybody been like, "What the fuck are you doing?
What are you fucking talking about?" Yeah, the liberal left would have been like, that's fucking insane.
The liberal they're back then it was liberal, and then there was like the left. Yeah. So like those were two like separate things, which is kind of amazing to me that the left kind of like weaseled their way into like the Democratic Party. Because I remember like as a kid, like the Democratic Party and like the liberals they were more of like a Bill Maher type liberal, whereas like we believe like everybody should be able to like say what they want to say. And everything, and maybe that gives way to like having these fucking crazy people like come into like your shit and like take over because you're willing to give ground to like hear what they have to say. Is like, but the Democratic Party of today is not the Democratic Party that I grew up with.
No. The Democratic Party today is very what's the word? I'm looking for the right word. They're very not scandalous. They're just, it's like they're all in cahoots together.
Right. Well, you have to, and unfortunately you're starting to see it a lot more with the Republican Party as well, is that you have to agree with the dogma of the party, with everything.
Every single facet. There can be no discourse.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I'm starting to see like, it's starting to rear its head on the right, too. Yeah. Like, I'm starting to see it there, and I'm like...
Which is interesting, because I feel like, at least in the past couple of years, what I've noticed is that the left is very quick to damn one another. Right. Like, the moment somebody steps out of line, they're immediately cut off. There is no forgiveness or anything like that. Right. But I feel like I've seen a lot out of, like, Republicans and the conservatives out of them is, they are more likely to forgive somebody of their sins, and they're more likely to accept someone coming from the other aisle.
Right.
Maybe that's on purpose. Maybe it's not genuine.
Right.
But I feel like that's what I've seen.
Right.
They're so fast to turn on one another.
Right.
Like one example is, I think Obama was given a speech at, I think it was Berkeley actually, and because they were banning books, and which is really interesting considering they're all freaking out about books being banned in like Texas and Florida schools or whatever. But we'll get to that. Obama basically said, you can't silence someone because you disagree with what they're saying.
Yeah, normal take you should probably have.
Yeah, and everybody in the crowd immediately turned on him and booed him, and like they just shit all over the guy.
Right.
I was like, this dude was your champion like 5 seconds ago.
It's like, and I don't like him, but I agree with what he just said.
Because you can do that.
Yeah.
You can dislike people and agree with what they said. You know who David Hogg is? Yeah. The other day,
unfortunately, I also saw that that tweet.
The other day, he
and I was like, oh, I agree with it.
I know. Oh man. It was the governor of New Mexico. Apparently, I don't know much about the actual story, but an 11-year-old kid got shot and killed.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like a gang thing. I don't know if it was another kid or what the deal was, but that is what happened. And the governor of New Mexico issued a public health emergency and tried to ban open and concealed carry, which is illegal and unconstitutional, and you can't do that. And it was really interesting to see people come across the aisle to stand up to her for that.
No.
It was like that little inkling of totalitarianism reared its head when she did that, and people on both sides of the aisle were like, no. Like if we're going to have something be a way, it's because we all agreed it was going to be that way, not because one person decided that was going to be the case.
Which is really interesting because that wasn't the case when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Like it was a very stark difference between the two sides of the aisle as opposed to like shutting things down.
Yeah.
Like I feel like when COVID first started, that everybody kind of agreed, they're like, we'll do this for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're all agreeing that we'll stop doing it. We'll just get groceries and we'll come home.
It was a very begrudging kind of agreement.
Right.
Everybody was like, ugh, okay, fine.
Yeah. But then like after it like went on
for like,
they're
7 months.
They're like, we need to do another week.
Yeah.
And then by the time like they extended that like the third time, like I feel like people on the right were like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah. Well, they were also they were very aware of that to begin with.
Right.
They're like, what's this going to lead to?
Exactly.
Like giving them this kind of power.
Right.
But
So in that vein, it is very interesting to me that people, because it seems like to me that people that are more left-leaning are more willing to give power to the state
they're willing to give up their liberties, it seems.
Right.
Yeah. In exchange for safety.
And it might be that people on the right are more willing to do that when somebody on the right is in power.
Yeah.
And it might just be that if your guy is in power, you're more willing to give away your rights because you think that the ones that you find important are going to be made sure that they aren't taken away, which, by the way, they aren't because Trump was for red flag laws.
Yeah. They always seem to forget that.
Yeah.
They always seem to forget that famous Trump quote, take the guns first and ask questions later. But anyway,
But as you were saying about David Hogg.
David Hogg. So David Hogg is this. Where did he come from? Was it Sandy Hook when the Sandy Hook shooting started? I think that's what it was. So David Hogg has been this political activist that like the left sunk their claws into, and he's like their little fucking puppet. Him and Greta Thunberg and whatever that other one was. He's very anti-2A.
No.
Very pro gun ban, like as far that direction as you could possibly get. And here's the thing: I wouldn't have as much of a problem with David Hogg. He's free to feel that way about that thing, but he's so insufferable.
Yeah,
he's such a smarmy little fucking nick, But that's besides the point. The point is, the governor of New Mexico, she did the public health emergency. Nobody can open carry or concealed carry a firearm. And the local mayor or whatever, the sheriff, all these people, all these other politicians came forward like, we are not going to enforce this because it's unconstitutional.
And the AG said, I won't prosecute people.
Yeah. And David Hogg tweeted about it, and I can't remember what his exact words were, but he was like, he's like, this is the result that we want to see. He's like, but this isn't kind of the way we want to go about it.
Right.
He was like, David Hogg said it was unconstitutional.
Right.
And it was so strange because, like, there's a lot of, like, other, like, accounts. I don't necessarily follow them, but I see their shit a lot. Like the redheaded libertarians one that I see a lot because she just fucking doom scrolls all day long.
No.
Her and Tim Pool, and they were like, they shared this thing. They were like, heartbreaking. The person you hate just made a point you agree with.
I know. I saw that because I saw when that happened or whatever, and I was like, ugh. Yeah. I was like, I agree with it, but it feels bad. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But somebody actually made a pretty good point that...
One moment. Hey! Damn hounds.
But somebody made a pretty good point. They were saying that this might have been just like... We're going to do this, and we're going to see what the reception is to this.
Yeah, gauging the reaction.
And that everybody, and I don't, this is conspiracy, so I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on real quick. And so people that are usually in the loop with the left, like they gauge the reaction, and then they have David Hogg go out and say, this is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
So that way they can be like, nah, not yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very very cynical way to look at it.
Yeah.
But it's also very believable.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, fucking at this point.
At this point, yeah. Who the fuck knows? Like, I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know who's telling the truth. I don't know. It's like fucking when all this stuff started coming out about aliens, is because there's been a lot of alien talk like the past year and a half or so. You know, I saw this tweet where somebody said, I believed in aliens until the government said they were real. Because the government, and now NASA, they released an article about aliens and all that shit. And, of course, the Mexican government unveiled those two corpses, quote-unquote corpses. I just don't know, like... I feel like if you would have got whichever artist you used to make those little men, to make something that was kind of unknowable, like just a, like a writhing mass.
Yeah, they didn't look like I don't know, a mix between Yoda and E.T. He's like, they're like, we need you to make two aliens.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what are two movies that got aliens?
Aliens. I got it. Just they're little gray men. And it's like, I think about it on the other direction though. Like, imagine like you are the archaeologist that you found these aliens, and you're like, fuck, they look like E.T. and Yoda.
Yeah.
Like, no one's ever going to believe that this is what they are. I think it would be hilarious to me, like if, a flying saucer appeared and it landed and there's like live news coverage and out walks a little gray alien. I would lose my fucking mind laughing because it would be so funny that all those crackpots were right the whole time. And imagine how vindicated they would feel. Like everybody who lives out near Area 51.
I fucking told you.
Yeah. It's like you can never say it enough.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's like I don't fucking know anymore.
Yeah.
Because, I mean...
I don't know what to believe anymore. Yeah.
If they keep proving Alex Jones right, then who the fuck knows? Who knows anymore?
That fucking video you sent me, by the way, of that metal song, they were using Alex Jones screaming. It kind of made me feel like he could have had a future in that.
Yeah, he missed his calling.
He would have been a crazy deathcore vocalist. It's just It's actually really good.
My favorite.
My favorite part is where he's like, I have the power to kill this child.
My favorite part is where he gets like real wide-eyed. He's like,
he's so fucking funny.
God.
He's so funny. And you know what? We had a discussion about him not long ago. One of our earlier episodes, actually. I think it might have been. Where
do you think he's just playing a character?
Well, see, that's what I was saying. We had talked about whether or not he was being for real or if he was like, if he played it up any. And, I've seen him. The only like 2 public appearances I've seen him is during his trial, for one. And then
is that the one he was like, you mean like the Clintons and Epstein?
Yeah.
And the guy's like,
that one and his appearance on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And I think he's just that way. I think that's just who he is. Yeah. He's a very convicted man.
Yeah.
He feels very strongly about what he feels. And you know what? Good on him.
Yeah.
I still think that that $1 trillion fine, was it $1 trillion? No, it was $1 billion. Was it $1 billion?
Was it? No.
It was something astronomical.
Yeah, it was like $40 billion or something like that. That might be a little bit more than what it actually was.
I mean, it was the kind of fine that like a Fortune 500 company gets,
right,
when they found out they've been dumping chemicals in the ocean.
They were trying to make an example out of him.
Yeah, definitely. They had that was the stocks in the
right.
Town Square.
Yeah, they were trying to make an example out of like, hey, if you do this, we're going to come after you. So, and we're going to make sure that you can't operate.
Connecticut jury orders Alex Jones to pay nearly $1 billion to Sandy Hook families.
Yeah.
So was his whole thing like, the whole thing was like, he was saying that Sandy Hook was a hoax, right?
It was a hoax. It was staged. And, that's a fucking shitty thing to say.
Yeah.
And I agree.
Especially if you're directly affected by it. If it was your kid.
But I don't see what in any reasonable person would say that each one of those families deserves $200 million.
Yeah.
Because he said something shitty. I mean, if that's the case, the fuck are we doing? Like, how far down the slide are we going to go before everybody wants to get off?
The thing about money like that, like, it's how you, especially when somebody's child or someone is murdered or they're killed accidentally by like a state official, and they get these payouts. It's, you get that money kind of out of obligation. Not that it actually really helps. Well,
most of the time, like, especially like when the government is involved, say Ruby Ridge, like if they have to make the payout, they're not just going to give you like a large sum of money just to make you feel better.
No.
The way that they're going to do that is they're going to go, what was the earning potential? What is the possible earning potential of this person had we not killed them?
It's not very calculated.
So if they blow a fucking child's brains out, like, I don't know, they did it Ruby Ridge. It's like, then they're going to go, the earning potential of this person was $10 million over their lifetime. Here's $10 million. Give us $1 million. Give us 5 of it back because we owe taxes on it.
But I mean, like, and another good example is like when people who have been wrongly convicted, and they end up getting, is it exonerated?
Yeah.
They end up getting exonerated some fucking 20, 30 years later. There's a very famous case of that guy who was convicted of rape, and he was sentenced rape and murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison when he was like 18 or something like that. And then they found out, like, new evidence came forward, like DNA evidence that exonerated him of that, and they let him out of prison at the age of like 65, and they gave him $1 million. And it's like, his entire life is gone.
Right.
He spent it in prison, probably getting radicalized, if anything. And you hand him $1 million?
Right.
Sorry, here you go. But you can't ever make it right.
Give us 500,000 of that back because you owe taxes on it.
You can't ever make it right, though.
No.
Ever. There's nothing you can do to make it right because you can't give anybody their time back. You can't. Once that's gone, that's gone.
I think as far as like the judicial system is concerned, I think that when people, and it would be hard to prove, but if people knowingly prosecute someone that they know is innocent, because most of the time what happens is that they'll try a case and they'll go, look, somebody did it, so we got to prosecute somebody. Like, we can't just let everybody off the hook on this. Yeah. So, like, if you get pegged, it's like they're coming after you. Like, that's just the way that it is. So it's like, but if it gets proven that this person is, like, if it gets proven that you knowingly, like, convicted this person and knowing that they did not commit the crime, there should be like legal ramifications for the people that were involved with this, which would include the prosecutor. So like the prosecutor, anybody that works as far as like law enforcement's concerned, like there should be no such thing as, what is it they call it? Cops have it where you can't like sue a cop.
Qualified immunity.
Yeah. Like that, number one, like if you wanted to fix the system, you would take that away. Yeah. You would take away qualified immunity. No one has it.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems with doing that is, number one, the reason why it even exists in the first place is so that cops you can't jam up the courts with, like fucking just like bullshit people suing cops because they, hurt their wrists or something like that during an arrest. But at the same time, it gets abused. Yeah. So there's really not like a good answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, they should have like, if that's the case, then they should have like guidelines. They should be like, if you get like shot by a cop, or whatever, and let's say like the video evidence. That's right,
because there's degrees of severity.
Yeah, like depending upon the degree of severity or whatever, it's like then yes, qualified immunity does not count in this case. Yeah. It shouldn't just be like this blanket, like you can't.
Right, because if you got rid of it totally, you'd have people coming in there like trying to sue cops for being mean during a traffic stop. Right. And that would just jam the courts up.
Right. So so like they should have like degrees of severity. Yeah. And like if it meets the minimum qualification for whatever, getting rid of qualified immunity at this point. Yeah. This like then you should be able to sue the fuck out of somebody. Right. Like so say like you get pulled over for a traffic stop or whatever. And like the cop just comes up and it's fucking belligerent. Yeah,
he's like having a shitty day.
Yeah, having a shitty day. He like pulls you out of the car. Like you're trying to be like as cooperative as possible.
He just whoops your ass for no reason.
And he beats the shit out of you. Yeah, you should be able to sue the fuck out of that dude. Yeah, like individually. Like you should be able to come after the individual. Yeah, like as opposed to like the department. Right. Yeah. Because what that is like you don't actually hurt the fucking department. They'll just take it out of the taxes. Yeah. They don't give a fuck. Right. Like they'll just tax people more and get the money back. Yeah. It's like, but if like you were able to individually come after somebody, then like.
Well, it kind of forces them to be a little bit more careful. Right. Because then you can't hide behind the department at that point. Right. If you are accountable and responsible for yourself, then you probably kind of approach things a little more carefully. Right. I mean, those are extreme situations that we're talking about. I mean, like, and if that were the case, if they did if they got rid of qualified immunity except for certain cases, then there's all this legislation that would have to be introduced and all this legal back and forth, and they'd have to pass a bill, and Right. The thing about American politics is that nothing good happens quickly. The only things that happen quickly are bad. No.
I don't think anything good happens slowly either. I don't really think anything good ever happens. I don't think anything good's ever happened. It's all been bad.
Welcome to Earth. Nothing good has ever happened.
I don't know. Just like the older I get, the more I am like anti-authoritarian. Oh yeah. Like I want to be fucking left alone. Yeah. Like you have no right to, like, as long as I'm not fucking hurting anybody.
You have no authority.
You have no authority here.
Yeah. I do not recognize your authority. Right. I don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just like the older I get, the more I'm just like
because I'm an individual. Right. Right. And that doesn't mean that I think I should be free of consequences. Right. But it's like you can't tell me what to do. Right.
Yeah, just like the older I get, the more like people that want like authority and control over people, the more I'm looking at them sideways.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever met a person?
Right.
Why would you ever give a person authority over you?
Right.
Why would you ever?
Yeah, and why would you want it?
Yeah, and why do you want it?
Yeah,
why do you want to be subjugated?
Yeah. Like, why, like, you should be asking the person that wants the authority, like, why do you want the authority to be able to do things to other people?
Right.
Like, what is your reasoning behind this?
Yeah. Because a normal person doesn't want to lord over other people.
No.
There's a very specific type of person that wants to do that.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like we were talking about last night at dinner was, we talked about with Elon Musk, it was those kinds of jobs and those kinds of positions attract a very specific type of person, a very specific type of personality. Positions of power, positions of like legislation, CEOs and things like that. It's like the normal like layman doesn't even want to do any of that. I don't want to do that. I don't want that. I don't want that responsibility.
Right.
I don't want that power. I just kind of want to be left alone.
Right.
But there are people who do actively seek out that ability to have power over people. And, you know, as far as like CEOs go, there are people who seek out that amount of, I don't know if you call it accountability, but that amount of responsibility, I guess. Right. Because they want, it's control, it's power. Right. You have control over all this shit.
Right.
You know, from the top down. And I don't want that at all.
No.
I just, you know, I want to be able to do my little thing, and then go about my way. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, we had discussed if we said that, you know, Elon Musk is probably autistic to some degree.
Oh yeah.
It's very like Allison said, at the bare minimum, he probably has Asperger's.
Yeah.
Just because of what he does.
Right.
And it's like, I wonder if there is some kind of personality disorder that most politicians have. And if I had to guess, it was probably sociopathy.
Yeah.
Or some form of, like, I just had it. I just had it, but I lost it. Not autism.
Psychopathy.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Because I mean, it's not the kind of a job where you just go and you clock in and you clock out.
No.
And you take that home with you. You take it everywhere with you.
Yeah.
Every single thing you do is under scrutiny constantly.
And unfortunately, my political leanings do not, like the people that lean politically the same way that I do, which are like less government, leave me the fuck alone. Yeah. Like those people don't want to be in government.
Yeah, that's the crux of the whole issue, isn't it?
So most of the people that I agree with don't run for political office because they don't want anything to do with it. Which, interestingly enough, have you seen the guy that's running for president in Argentina? So the Argentina has got an election coming up, and the guy that's leading in the polls is a libertarian.
Really?
And he has promised to get rid of like all of the state departments.
Really? Like no more Department of Education, no more FBI,
no DEI, no FBI, no CIA. He's like, they're all gone. He's like, I'm getting rid of all of them.
Really?
Yeah. And everybody's like, yes.
Fuck yes.
Yeah.
Do it, please.
It'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah.
Like in practice. And you know, I don't really know much about their political system, so I don't know how much they're going to try to gum up the works as far as like him being able to accomplish this or whatever.
Yeah. Well, of course they're going to stand in his way.
So it was actually kind of funny because he was standing like at this whiteboard and he had like pieces of paper like taped to a whiteboard. Yeah. And he was like ripping off like the names of like he's like Department of Homeland Security gone. and then he was like Department of Diversity and Inclusion. And he like went to go rip it off and it wouldn't rip, and he ripped it off. He's like, even if you resist.
Oh man,
I was like, I like this guy.
Yeah. You know, I think that a lot of people they misinterpret kind of what libertarianism is just chaos and anarchy.
Right.
And there is some element of that where you have people who do want.
Yeah, there's a flavor of libertarianism.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. But really what it comes down to is we just
individual
responsibility. We want to be left alone. We don't want anybody with any kind of authority over us telling us what we can and cannot do. And at the end of the day, like it's just the non-aggression principle, right?
Right.
Don't hurt people and take their things.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to.
It's a pretty simple concept.
Sorry.
Well, it's like I've said before on the podcast. It's if you are willing to enforce your ideology on others through force and or coercion, then you must be willing to accept that people that do not want to do that are willing to use force in order to fight back against the ideology that you are trying to enforce.
Yeah.
It's like you essentially, when you do that, you make the agreement that if I'm willing to hurt you, then I must be willing to accept that you are going to hurt me in order to not do the thing that I want you to do.
Yeah. It's like whenever you see news stories or videos of people who got shot robbing a store or got shot doing a home invasion, and then their family comes out and tries to make themselves out to be the victim. It's like, no, you're not. Your cousin or whoever it was that went and did this thing. They paid the consequences for their actions.
Yeah, little Raymond over here.
Yeah. The thing is, you are not obligated to be a victim.
No.
You have a right to reject victimhood.
Right.
Every single person does.
Right.
And that every time like I get in an argument with somebody about owning a firearm or like Second Amendment rights or whatever, is like you have a right to reject victimhood regardless of what that means.
Right.
You are not obligated to suffer at the hands of anybody. I don't care who it is.
No. I have every right to defend myself and my family.
Yeah.
Period. End of discussion.
That is the end of the discussion.
End of discussion. And if that requires me having a tank
or a fucking nuclear bomb
as a diversion tactic, then so be it.
Yeah. I saw this thing the other day that was like it was like what people think libertarians are versus like what libertarians actually are.
No.
And it was the first guy was like I should be allowed to own a nuclear silo.
Yeah.
And then the other guy was like, why can't I paint my shed? That's all that SpongeBob meme where it's like Squidward was like, I'm a libertarian, and Patrick's like, what does that mean? And SpongeBob was like, it means he's afraid of HOAs. The other day at work, matter of fact, it was yesterday. And my particular career has a lot to do with engineering. I'm not an engineer, but I work with engineers, and every second Friday of the month, or every other Friday, we have this big like company-wide meeting in the morning, and we just kind of talk about things that are going on in the engineering space and what's they want us to make sidewalks this way now, and it's very riveting conversations. But they started talking about microtransit and what that is. And it is government. It's basically a government-provided Uber service. And the moment that they brought it up, I was like that kid that's like straining and he's got all the veins in his neck and his head. I'm just like trying so hard to not shit all over it. I was like, let me tell you exactly why. That's a bad fucking idea. One person that I work with, they know my political leanings.
Yeah.
And, I'm like a touch more authoritarian than most libertarians are.
Yeah.
But not by a whole lot. He messaged me and he was like, what do you think about this? And I was like, I'm sweating right now. I was like, I'm trying so hard not to speak up about this. And they were like, it's all going to be funded by taxes and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, they're like, this will ensure that grandma can get to the voting booth. And I'm just like, I was like, I can't say anything. I'll get fired. I can't say anything. I'll get fired. Yeah, but I mean...
You're just like, taxation is theft!
Yeah, taxation is theft. Federal income tax is illegal, not constitutional. Just like turn my mic on and just start going at it. Which it is, by the way. The federal income tax is illegal and unconstitutional. They did it to...
was it to fund World War One, or was it two? I think it was one, wasn't it?
I think it was one.
Yeah, it was World War One. They enacted that to pay for World War One, and they were like, "Oh, well, it'll go away."
They had to ratify the Constitution in order to make it happen.
Right.
Yeah. And so all that tells me is that if they can ratify the Constitution once, all they need is a good reason to do it again.
Right.
And they will do it again, and they would do it again.
Well, yeah, and fortunately, I think that, and it seems to me like when I have conversations with people and I like pose the argument as to like why libertarianism is a good thing, as opposed to like what they see like on legacy media and how it's misrepresented.
Like all you people want to do is smoke weed and shoot guns.
Yeah. It's like, yes, however, also.
Yeah, that's part of it, yes.
But like when I pose the argument, they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's like, yeah. To me, they're like, well, I agree with a lot of that too. I was like, yeah, you have libertarian leanings.
Yeah. To me, the basic principle is, if it isn't voluntary, it's tyranny.
Yeah.
And I genuinely feel that way.
Yeah.
Like the moment that you tell me I can't do something,
I want to do it so
bad. I want
to
do it so fucking bad, you have no idea. Just to spite you for thinking you have authority over me.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of what that is too is like if you spend, K through 12 in government schools, it's that's a form of tyranny. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, you're forced to.
You are forced to go do this thing.
Because if you don't do it, your parents will go to jail and get fined. And
there's nothing that you can do that will circumvent the fact that you have to go do this thing. Yeah.
The easy way to look at it is.
So I was radicalized at a very young age.
An easy way to look at it is, I call it the trail of consequences. Yeah. Right? So let's say one day I decide that I am not going to pay my taxes.
Right.
Out of my personal conviction, I feel that it's wrong that I have to do it. I'm not going to do it anymore. I stop paying any kind of taxes. The government will then say, hey, man, you have to pay taxes. And I'll say, I don't want to. I'm not going to.
Right.
What happens then? They send somebody to my house.
With a gun.
And they try to arrest me. And I say, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And then they put their hands on me. And I do not agree with that. I have a right to reject victimhood. You have no authority over me. You are not allowed to harm me.
Right.
And I fight back. Then what happens? They shoot me in my fucking head and I'm dead.
Right.
And you can take any kind of example. It always comes back down to that.
Right.
They send somebody with a gun to your house to shoot you in the head.
Right.
If you disobey.
I mean, that's what it all boils down to, like at the end of everything.
Yeah. I think with the red flag laws, they just jump straight to sending somebody with a gun to your house. Yeah. That's what they did to that guy over in Utah. The FBI showed up and they murdered him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole the most disappointing. Well, I mean, it's not really disappointing because I found out who was funding that company, but. Is it the same guy that I'm thinking of? The guy that Liberty Safe?
No, the old man who was posting on Facebook about how he wanted to kill Joe Biden.
Sorry, I was thinking of another thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
You're talking about the January 6th guy.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to jump into that, but
this has been the political episode, so we've only got like 10 minutes left, so we might as well see this through.
So, for those of you that don't know, there's a guy that I guess, from what I understand, and I don't know if this is the full story, but I guess he was at the January 6th protest.
No, he wasn't there.
He wasn't there?
No.
Okay, so I guess he wasn't there.
He was a part of Proud Boys, I think it was.
Okay, so but he had made a post or something at some point in favor of January 6th? Okay.
So, and same thing happened to their de facto leader.
Yeah.
Enrico something.
Yeah. So he, I guess, made a post or whatever, like defending the January 6th protest, which, I mean, you can have your just however you want to feel about that, whatever.
We don't have enough time to get into that.
We don't have enough time to get into that. However, but he purchased a safe through a company called Liberty Safe, and I think that these safes are supposed to be pretty well known as, I don't want to say they're not cheap, but they're a more affordable version of what you could get for like $50,000, right? So these safes...
Like one of the ones you'd find at like Academy Sports along the back wall.
Yeah. Like these safes or whatever are kind of known like in the 2A community for like they're supposed to be like defenders of like the Second Amendment and like all this stuff. So the I guess it was the FBI like sent out, they like told Liberty Safe, they're like, we're going to go arrest this guy, as like we need.
No, they got in contact with Liberty Safe after they somebody's trying to break in. After they showed up and bum rushed him and forced their way into his home.
Right. So they never presented a warrant then.
No.
Okay. So they just told Liberty Safe, hey, this is.
They said, hey, we're at this guy's house.
Yeah, this is Joe Schmuckatelli. From the FBI.
Yeah.
I need essentially there's a I guess a master code or whatever that they can put in, because it's a digital lock,
they
right?
They have a backlog.
A backlog
of all the codes.
Okay.
For all the safes.
Okay. So Liberty Safe just gives it to them. They're like, here you go.
Yeah.
And then so they like break into this guy's safe and take all of his weapons and everything.
Yeah. They steal from him.
Yeah. They took his property, so it's theft.
Yeah.
And so word gets out that this is what this safe company has done with the idea that they are pro Second Amendment. They believe that people should not be able to take your property away from you.
Believe in your personal liberties.
Yeah. So word gets out, and then they immediately are like saying that they were presented with a warrant and everything.
Yeah.
And people were like, no, what should have happened is that you should have said, no, fuck you, come back with a subpoena with our name on the subpoena.
Yeah. Another thing, too, is people saw it as kind of like a breach of security as far as like, why does that backlog even exist?
Right.
And I think if you consider it from a customer service standpoint, it makes sense to have that backlog, because somebody might accidentally get locked out of their safe, or, God forbid, like you have a child who gets in the fucking thing and closes it.
Somebody also made a pretty good point, and this is all like, somebody said this happened to him, so I can't speak for the fact that maybe it did or maybe it didn't happen. Yeah. But somebody had stated, they were like, I called Liberty Safe. Yeah. They're like, because I'd forgotten my code to get into my safe, and they told me they could not give it to me. Yeah. And that I had to contact a locksmith to come out and get the lock off of the safe. Yeah. And so they're like, so what is it? Yeah. They're like, so you can't give it to me, but you can give it to the FBI?
You can give it to the Fed?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was what a lot of the argument was. So I guess going forward, the company or whatever has stated that moving forward that they're not going to keep that log anymore for new safes.
They're going to give you the option
to opt out of it.
To opt out of it. Okay. Yeah.
But
so that way,
but who's to say?
Yeah.
Right.
That way, even if they do get subpoenaed, they can just put their hands up and say, "Sorry, we simply do not have that information."
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would if I owned a safe company, that's probably the way that I would go about it to begin with. Yeah. I'd be like, look, if you purchase the safe, you're purchasing the safe, knowing that there's no backlog of the safe, like the codes that we have for your safe.
So you're going to have to go buy a plasma cutter
to
get your shit out of the safe. And then you're going to have to buy another safe.
Right. And I think a lot of people purchase that safe, I think, under the assumption that if I lose the code for this safe,
I'm out of it forever.
I'm going to have to break the fucking thing open in order to get inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, we're working under the... if that was me, that would be the assumption I was working.
Right.
I would have never thought that I'm buying this safe knowing that if the Fed wanted to, break into my shit and steal my things, they could totally do it without any kind of hindrance.
Right. And I think it's important too for like especially people that don't lean politically the same way that I lean, is that eventually it's going to come for you too. Yeah. Like it doesn't stop with the things
what makes you think you're exempt?
It doesn't stop with the things that I hold dear.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't stop with the idea that I am pro 2A, I am pro leave me the fuck alone. Yeah. It
Free
doesn't
speech,
it doesn't stop
stuff,
there.
Yeah.
So eventually it will come for you too.
Yeah.
It's like there's no such thing, like nobody gets power and then they go, that's enough. Like I've got enough power. Because like you said, there's the type of people that go into positions of power or seek positions of power are not the type of people that are going to give power back.
No, absolutely not.
So at some point, like let's say that, just be what it is. I mean, let's choose fucking so let's say that you give the power for the state to come in and take away whatever X right it is, like you just...
Like the 19th Amendment.
Yeah, the 19th Amendment. Like
the rights of women's vote.
Right, they come in, you take it away. Well, when you take away, like, let's say the Second Amendment.
Or the 14th Amendment. That'd be a big one.
Yeah. Let's say that you get the government just has like, they go, okay, we're getting rid of the Second Amendment because we have the power to do such.
Yeah.
You have set the precedence that the government, under whoever's serving at the time,
On their whim,
can get rid of amendments like that.
Yeah.
Well, who's to say that eventually the tide does not turn, and let's say that they start repealing other amendments.
Yeah, the ones you like.
The ones that you like. So most of the time, it is best to leave those fucking things alone and not give anybody the power to make decisions for you.
It's all about setting precedents.
Right. Because it's somebody made a pretty good point. They said, if you're afraid of the opposite party getting into power because you're afraid of what that
you're
power,
afraid they're going to start doing what you've
been
doing?
Of what that power can do. Maybe those people are given too much power.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely they are. We right before we get out of here, I wanted to ask if you saw the video of the New Yorkers screaming at AOC.
No, but I have heard they're very upset.
Well, yeah,
with all
of course
the migrants
they're upset.
they have moved in.
The migrant thing is fucking insane.
Yeah, they got red pilled real quick.
Yeah, I saw. Well, there's two videos I saw on Twitter this over the week, and one of them was
like, y'all sound real racist.
Yeah, all these protesters, these anti-migrant protesters showed up to this facility where they were all being offloaded, and it was this building that was right next to a girls' Catholic school.
Yeah.
What a great combination, guys.
Yeah.
Good idea. And they're offloading all these migrants, and they're all military-aged men. And
with no family.
With no
members.
family, yeah. And all the protesters, like all these New Yorkers, go, get the fuck out of here! Go back to where you fucking came from! We don't fucking want you here! It's like they're all screaming. And you got to hand it to the New Yorkers. They caused such a ruckus and got so loud that the migrants got back on the bus and they fucking left. But the other video I saw was AOC was standing out there and she's giving all this fucking political speak about how the migrants have rights to whatever such and such, and we're going to give them workers' rights so they can get employed. And the whole time she's standing there, all of her used to be supporters, I'm assuming, are screaming. It's so loud. She's speaking into a microphone. You can't hear her. It's so fucking loud. Everybody's going, close the border, close the border. They're so fucking
it's just like,
angry.
Come on, like, read the room.
And it's like I said in the last episode was, it's hard to feel bad for you because you voted for this.
Yeah, you've made your bed. You're going to have to lay in it.
When it wasn't affecting you,
right? You
voted for it, and now that it's here, you have a problem with it,
right?
I also saw this thing. It was a clip of Jules from Pulp Fiction, where he's screaming at that guy or whatever, and it said New Yorkers, we didn't vote for this, and it said me, and it's Jules going, yes you did, yes you did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's maybe that was the wake up call that they needed. I mean, at some point, everybody wakes up.
And not just on the migrant thing, just kind of, and not even their ideology. Just the thing that you can be affected by the things that you vote for.
Exactly.
That's what I want them to realize.
Well, and I think that a lot of people that live in these large cities, they go, as long as the large cities are performing well, fuck the rest of America. It doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. Well, it's like, no, you need to have a strong America across the board.
Yeah, from coast to coast.
It's like, I understand that maybe you want to have more restrictive gun rights in large cities because you have people living on top of one another. Yeah. And maybe that makes sense for you, but it doesn't make sense for rural America.
Yeah.
It's like when, if something happens and you call the cops, it could take them
45 minutes
to fucking come out to where you are.
Yeah.
It's like you need to be able to defend yourself against whatever.
Because you have a right to reject victimhood.
Yeah, because you have a right to reject authority.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to take your rights away.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think that should be afforded to people in big cities as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, if not guns, then
let's say your right to free speech, to say whatever it is that you want to, whatever it is that you'd like to say. Is like, if you have a dissenting opinion about something.
And hate speech is free speech.
Right. It's like, yes, of course, like
That doesn't mean you can get away with it.
Right.
You have to pay the consequences.
Exactly.
But it is free speech.
Exactly.
You can't be silenced.
No. And I don't think that the government should have the right to throw you in prison.
No.
For
words that came out of your mouth.
For a thought crime.
Yeah.
Right? So that's...
Stinky thinky.
Yeah. That's fucking Orwellian. What the fuck are we doing? So, but like I said, it always comes back to people go... And, it's very concerning because I know what happens on either side of the spectrum when you go way left and you have Mao and Lenin and you have the Bolshevik Revolution and you have all the kulaks that died during the fucking the famine that they had when the Red Army took over.
Yep.
It's like, and all these millions of farmers died because they essentially took the fucking land away from everybody.
They said the state owns this.
Yeah, and the state owns it, and they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and they killed a bunch of people just because of how stupid they were. It's like, and then you go on the other side, and you have the right, and I think we all know what happens.
Yeah, yeah. When fascism gets a foothold.
So unfortunately, if it leans way too far this way, most of the time when the pendulum swings all the way this way, in order to counterbalance, it doesn't just go back to the middle.
No,
it usually swings way back to the other side, and that's my concern.
Yeah,
is that it's not just going to come back to the middle where we're all like
getting along.
Hey, like we just want liberty.
Yeah,
it's going to be like, fuck those guys.
Yeah,
they did this to us.
It's our turn.
It's our turn now.
Yeah, and then you get that for about 20 years. And then the pendulum swings back to the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's exactly what happened with Nazi Germany. Mm-hmm. That's the exact fucking thing that happened. Is that fucking Churchill and who was the president at the time for the U.S.? They essentially blockaded Germany post the, what was the...
Treaty of Versailles.
The Treaty of Versailles, and essentially made it impossible.
Imposed all these embargoes
and
on
sanctions
them,
and everything else, which drove the price of everything up. And people just had like stacks of money. They couldn't do anything with it. They couldn't purchase bread. Yeah. People were like starving to death. Yeah, it's like, and of course, if somebody...
They're not just going to lay down and take it.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah. They're not just going to lay down and take it. It's like, so somebody's going to come in. You're going to have a charismatic leader, which Hitler was, and he's going to come in and he's going to say... He's going to say the Jews did this to you.
And he's going to convince people to make a Holocaust happen.
Exactly. and especially when he resurrects the economy, and now they're the driving force in essentially the world economy. For a country that's less than the size of Texas.
Yeah. You got to hand it to them, man. They turned that shit around.
Like that.
Like within
that. 1936, when they had...
We're talking about a dynasty that happened. Yeah.
Like when the Olympics happened during 1936, everybody went, uh-oh. Yeah. Like, this is going to be a problem. Yeah. This is bad.
Yeah, like where did all this come from? They created it out of fucking nothing.
Well, everybody was on meth, but...
Yeah, well, that too.
But, I mean, like, you look at that, people aren't just going to lay down and take it. That's not how this works. And unfortunately, most of the time, when the pendulum swings way far the other way, like I said, it's going to swing way far the other way. Yeah. So it goes like this. It just doesn't come back to the middle. No. That's unfortunately, that's just not how humans work.
No, it's not. Every day we're fighting against our fucking instinct. Right. And we're losing.
Every day.
Every day.
So, and unfortunately, that is my concern, is that when power does switch, which it will at some point, it always does.
It's going to get ugly.
It's going to get real ugly. Yep. And unfortunately, when it gets real ugly over here, it's going to go way back the other way, and it's going to get real ugly the other way.
All I can say is just try to prepare for it. Just brace for it, because it's going to happen.
Maybe this is what happens with empires.
Yeah. Who would have thought? Never seen this play out before in history, not once. Well, that's about all we got time for today, everybody. Sorry that turned into the political podcast, but I guess we just had we needed to get that off our chest a little bit. So once again, thank you so much for listening. We managed to get 2 episodes in a row. Hopefully we can keep up that momentum. Also, we want to say, everybody wish a happy birthday to Wesley. Today is your 34th birthday?
I guess. I think. I was born in 89, so whatever, so it'd be 34.
So happy birthday to Wesley. So thank you everybody for listening. If you guys have anything you'd like us to discuss, or if we were wrong about anything, make sure you write into the show and you let us know. You can contact us on the Facebook page, or you can email us at thickboypodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you give us a follow and a like and a rating and a review and all that good stuff. Do you have anything you'd like to close with?
Just the usual. Thank you so much for the continued support. We do appreciate it. Like Gary said, if there's any topics or anything that you want us to cover, please let us know. We can certainly do that. But yeah, just thank you so much for the continued support. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. If we're not on your favorite podcast platform, let us know. We'll get it uploaded. I think that through Buzzsprout, who hosts our RSS feed. I mean, we can find out whether or not.
I'm pretty sure we can.
Yeah. So just let us know if we're not there, and then we'll be there. Just let us know. So thank you so much.
We'll be there complaining about the government.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the continued support. We appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That's the podcast. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.